All right, welcome everyone. Let's talk about a really powerful idea today. What if, instead of just, managing performance, we could actually architect it? Yeah, that's right. We're going to dive into a framework that's all about building high-performing teams right from the ground up. It's about turning management into this active, intentional design.
So let's just kick things off with a question that I'm sure every leader has asked at some point. What is the real difference between a good employee and a great one? I mean, what separates a solid team member from a genuine superstar? Is it just, raw talent, a bit of luck, or, and this is the big one, is it something that we, as leaders, can actually build? That's exactly what we're here to unpack. Well, the answer, it really all comes down to a huge shift in perspective. You see, the old model of management is kind of like being a judge, right? You're always looking back, assigning a grade after the fact. But this new model, the one we're digging into, it's all about being an architect, looking forward to actually design the conditions for success before it even happens.
Okay, so every great building project, every single one, starts with surveying the land, right? You've got to know what you're building on. Well, in the world of performance architecture, that very first, absolutely crucial step is a really thorough assessment.
And this quote, it just gets right to the heart of it. You just can't design some effective plan in a vacuum. It doesn't work that way. The source material is super clear on this. You have to, first, assess the raw materials you're working with. And what are those materials? The unique strengths and weaknesses of every single person on your team. So really, this whole assessment boils down to two key questions. First up, what are the pillars we can build on? What are their core strengths, the stuff they do so well it seems effortless? But then, and this is just as important, is the second question. Where are the biggest opportunities for development? And I love how this is framed. We're not talking about failures here. These are the areas where our architectural plan can offer the most support and, honestly, make the biggest difference. All right, so once you've surveyed the foundation, what's next? Well, now it's time to draw up the actual plans. This is the part where we take everything we learned from that assessment and turn it into a concrete, actionable guide for success. And just like a real architect has totally separate plans for a building structure and, say, its electrical systems, this framework gives us two distinct, essential blueprints for guiding an employee's performance.
And here they are, the two sides of the coin. On the one hand, you've got the developmental plan. This is all about the future, right? It's that aspirational journey of growth, what they can become. Then, on the other hand, you have the performance standard. This is all about excellence in the here and now. It's about what they must do in their current role. See the difference? One is about becoming, the other is about doing. Both are crucial.
Okay, let's zoom in on the developmental plan. The best way to think about this is like a career roadmap. It takes everything we learned in that initial assessment and uses it to ask those big long-term questions. Hey, where do you want to be in a year or 3 years, maybe even 5? And then how can we use your strengths and help you with your growth areas to actually get you there? It is literally a roadmap for unlocking potential.
Now, the performance standard is a completely different beast. It's much more immediate. This is the blueprint for the day-to-day grind. It basically answers one simple question. What does doing a great job look like in this role, right now? That's it. It's all about crystal clear expectations, things you can actually measure, and accountability. You absolutely need both to build a complete structure.
Okay, let's recap. You've got your foundation from the assessment. You've got your blueprint with the two plans. But how do you check if the construction is actually going according to plan? Well, for that, you're going to need the right set of tools to measure progress and gather feedback.
And that really is the key question for this final piece of the puzzle, isn't it? How do you gather the right info to see if the whole plan is working? A real architect doesn't just hand over the blueprints and disappear. No way! They're on the job site, taking measurements, talking to the crew. For us, there are 3 essential techniques for doing that exact same thing.
And those techniques make up our core evaluation toolkit. It's really simple. There are 3 tools. You've got a document review, a qualitative interview, and a quantitative interview. And we absolutely need all 3 because no single one of these can give us the complete picture. Let's break down how they work together.
Yeah, this table lays it out perfectly. First, the document review. That's your objective evidence. Think about the reports they wrote, the code they shipped, the designs they created. That's the what. Then you have the qualitative interview. This is where you get the story, the context, the all-important why behind the work. And finally, the quantitative interview.
This gives you the hard data, the metrics, the sales numbers, the how much. It's only when you combine the what, the why, and the how much that you get that true 360-degree view of performance.
So, let's bring it all together, shall we? You start with a solid foundation. That's the assessment of strengths and weaknesses. Then, you create the blueprint, using both a developmental plan for the future and a performance standard for right now. And finally, you use your toolkit of reviews and interviews to constantly measure progress. And boom, foundation plus blueprint plus tools, that is your architecture for high performance. It's that simple.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. Look, this whole framework, it's not just some abstract theory. It's a practical set of instructions, a real blueprint. So the only question left for you is this. You have the blueprint and you have the tools. So, what are you going to build?